future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
She's passionate about telling stories of amazing women who are rocking the world and empowering women to live, love, and thrive. Here's your host, Catherine Gray.
Hello, and welcome to Live, Love, Thrive Women's Empowerment Hour, brought to you, of course, by 360karma.com. And as you probably know, we are very excited to have on the Time Magazine Person of the Year, Dr. Jerry Brown from 2014, and how he impacted stopping the spread of Ebola. And my guest, Kimberly Moore of the Kimberly Moore Foundation, is back with us, so I'm very excited to have them back on today. And then later in the show, we are going to have some incredible filmmakers who are also making a big difference in the world, Vanice Reeder and Amy Siegel, so stay tuned for that. Next week, we have Paula Ciacci, who is the CEO of Outward Media, and also we're going to have Mamda Valderrama, who wrote the book called Girl in Traffic, and that's going to be a very riveting story. You're not going to want to miss them, and if you don't want to miss any of our shows, of course, be sure to follow us on YouTube and your podcast on iHeart and iTunes under Live, Love, Thrive. So for today's show, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Jerry Brown and Kimberly Moore. Hi. So glad to have you here. I know you're in from Liberia, and you are giving us this beautiful, rare opportunity to get to interview you. You are such an amazing man, and you're sitting beside another amazing woman who I call the Mother Teresa of the 21st century. Wow. That's what I call this lady. If anybody missed the show last week, or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Yes, she Kimberly was on, and she is the young lady that created the Kimberly Moore Foundation, who also has Adopt-A-Letter that answers the wishes of children who write to Santa. She's answered 40,000 of those. Is this like unimaginable? It is to me. And now she adopts countries, and that's how the two of them met. I'm just trying to set up how you two know each other. And she did adopt a country. Yes. And Liberia, where Dr. Brown is from, is one of the countries that she just adopted last year. They're helping put in infrastructure so they can be sustainable there with water. And you have a big focus on education for women, which is awesome because
women
of course, women and children. Yes. That's what our show is about. So I want to talk about that. But first, of course, I want to talk to you, Dr. Jerry, about your long road to how you got to where you are, and this situation that happened in your country that, you know, was so well known around the world. In fact, the fact that you had such an impact on the spread of Ebola, and of course that's why you were chosen for the very prestigious, you know, Person of the Year with Time Magazine. How did that feel?
And 100 influential men in the world.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. In Times Magazine.
So I know you had some very humble beginnings you were sharing with me.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It's a pleasure being on your show today. I feel honored being here today. And yes, it came as a surprise, quite frankly, but we were happy and to know that others were able to recognize our effort and to some extent make our effort known to others.
Yes.
Yes, that's
It's nice to be recognized when you do something, you know, that's really incredibly trailblazing. Yeah.
So,
and
but we were just in our little corner thinking we were executing our duty as we ought to.
Yes.
It was not looking out for recognition. No, it was like,
no,
this is what I have to do.
Yeah, that was just like
I need to save
a
life.
Wonderful perk that, you know, someone recognized it. Yeah. Someone, Time Magazine.
Time Magazine.
And you were explaining to me that in your in the village you've grown up in, Monrovia, it's called?
Yes, in Sinca,
and that your dad was a painter and really couldn't afford to put you through school, so you actually, in your early years, went and lived with a cousin so that you could go to school, yes?
Sure, yes.
Because he knew education was important.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. My father realized that he never had the financial capability to send all of us to school. I mean, I'm the fourth out of 8 siblings, and send me out to someone else, and that's how I got my formal education. And I don't remember at any one time throughout my life where my family directly supported me in school at any one time. So it was all from others coming in to help me at some point in time.
Is that like kind of the norm in your country for family and friends to help each other like that? Is that your culture?
Yes, that I would say yes, it's part of the culture. We tend to reach out to others who are not able to afford. Like currently, being able to get where I am, I'm now reaching out to other siblings or other family members and see how I can get some into university, get some into high school, and encouraging others to learn and get somewhere as well.
I love that. They must
Yes.
really look up to you.
A lot of
Yeah.
people are looking up to
Yeah.
me.
That's exciting.
Even me, yeah.
Yeah, and me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know you told me that you first went and lived with the cousins, then came back, and you had to actually then, when you were in your town, walk an hour to school every day and back in order to continue your education.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just sharing this because some people don't know what some people go through to get an education. And then there was the Civil War that broke out in your country, and they closed the university for a
Yes.
while, for 4 years. That kind of sidetracked your career, and then eventually you end up.
Yes,
I know you had political aspirations, but then decided to be a
Yes,
doctor.
decided to be chose to be a doctor. I actually, my political ambition was get into the public sector and perhaps someday being able to vie for the presidency. And my goal there was primarily to see how I could help people in their destitute position, see how I could improve the lifestyle or the livelihood of people around me. But when I studied the political situation in my country and realized that despite what you did,
Yes.
they still might have maybe killed you. Like the president I had as my role model was just slaughter. I said, no. I think I need to find another profession where I can possibly positively have impact in the life of people.
Right.
And there is where I chose medicine as the second option.
Right.
And then further my study at the EMWT College in Liberia, and took 8 years for a 5-year program.
I read that.
Yes,
Wow.
primarily
That's
because
dedication. You really wanted to be a doctor.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean a lot of
Yeah.
my colleagues who entered medical school with me at that time kind of gave up because of the long term
Sure.
and the delay, and felt we're getting older. When are we going to get
Right.
out of school before?
Well,
we
maybe you're
become-
getting older, but I'm not. But, yeah.
Yeah, but it was challenging. But
It's hard to believe you
today-
put in all those years because you don't look old enough to have put in all those years.
Yes, praise God for for His grace. I mean, people often say you look younger than your age. I say, well, thank God. I don't know how I'm managing, but to God be the glory.
That's
So-
because you're doing good work, though. Yeah.
Exactly. And once you became a doctor, you became the director of this
The
hospital.
EMWA Hospital, Internal Love Winning Africa.
Right. And 3 months into it,
Yes, just 3
The-
months when I was appointed medical director, then Ebola came.
the Ebola came right
Yes,
then.
and-
Wow. Welcome to medicine and being a doctor.
Yeah,
huh?
and I had just
Yeah.
returned from my postgraduate study in Cameroon, studying got my master in general surgery, and then got back, and all of a sudden,
Wow.
my very first job and position, I encountered Ebola. So it was.
So let me digress for a second. The two of you just won an award here in not too far in Denver
Yeah.
called the Loop Award, which is
Leaders
overcoming
obstacles
for peace.
Yes.
And you both won that, which is really cool. I'm so happy to have you both here today. And what I want to talk about is when the Ebola happened, 3 months into your being the director there.
Yes.
What was your first step in handling this? Because obviously the whole world was watching to see what was going to be next. No pressure. How did you handle it? You were explaining to me, how you were figuring out.
Well, Well, when
What were the first steps?
the very first thing, we were looking at the trend of events in our neighboring country, in
Yes.
Guinea, Sierra Leone, where we had already a large number of cases starting people. And we're looking at the rapid rate at which the disease did spread in those countries. And so when we heard about that, our goal was to set up a plan, put in the mechanism, and be ready so that just in case we had a patient turning out at a hospital with a disease, we'll be able to, one, isolate you, or two, find a way of transporting you wherever the government would have set up.
Right.
Yes, so that was our initial plan. Okay, how we protect ourselves and
Right.
patients coming in our doorstep. But it turned out that our holding unit that we set up at the hospital turned out being the first treatment unit in the capital. And because we could not wait for the building of a formal structure or tents as it's often done during an Ebola outbreak. And I hope we all could learn from that we could make use of existing structure and
Right.
begin to tackle the disease
Rather than wait.
folding our hands and
Right.
waiting for our partners to come from abroad to come and build fabulous tent that was so costly.
Right.
And most of the resources would have been directed for other things. That's
Right.
how I felt. And use those structures. I mean, the structures that we use, we've gone back to using them in a normal way. Our kitchen is currently being used for
Right.
cooking, and we go there to eat.
But here you were treating patients in the kitchen and
Yes, in the kitchen,
places that normally wouldn't be because you needed to have space.
Space.
And yeah.
Yeah, so we just
You had an influx
restructured
of a lot
those-
of people, right?
restructure those
Yeah.
structures and then turn out to be suitable places for treating.
I think you started with 4 hospital beds, and then that
Yeah, we started with the chapel, where we had only 6 beds, and then it came to a point where we were waiting for the patient to die before having another person admitted.
to treat
And
them.
then we said, wow, so the the rapidity at which people were getting infected was kind of on an exponential basis. And so we had to move to
I
another
can't
site.
imagine the pressure you were under with these numbers growing and more people coming, and yet your doctors and your nurses, a lot of them did not want to treat these patients because, I mean, let's face it, this was like a life or death situation sometimes in treating these patients. I
Yes.
mean, as people can see in your Time Magazine picture, you had to wear the garb to protect yourself, and I mean, you have a family. You were putting yourself at risk to treat these people, but you felt like your humanity of taking care of them as a doctor was more important. But I mean, explain to me how that felt.
Well, I think the first place I will start from is that once you decide to choose a career, you must have one passion for the career you've chosen, and know there are challenges involved in whatever career you've chosen.
Right.
And so for some of us, we felt we had a disease on hand, and the military won't be the right people to come to take care of it. We can't call the accountant to come to take care of it.
Right.
It was medical personnel that ought to stand up to the cause.
Right.
It was risky. We saw our colleague dying. I do agree. But if we all ran away, I mean,
Yeah.
the disease would have continued to spread
Right.
more rapidly and would have lost more lives. So despite our intervention, many persons still die.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it was troubling. Some of our family members stopped coming to our homes because of the work we found ourselves engaged in. Some of our colleagues stopped coming around us because we were involved in such activity.
Wow.
Some of the staff at the unit, spouses put them out of the house
Oh my
because
gosh.
the nurse chose to work in the unit. I
Right.
mean, and many things happened behind the scene that others
Yeah.
did not know about. There
Right.
were several occasions where a husband of some of the nurses came to me and asked me to put their wife out of the place and asked them not to work,
Right.
and say if anything happened to their wife or happened to the husband, I'll be here responsible.
Right.
But we today give glory to God that none of the staff ever died from the disease, because it would have been more challenging to face
Right.
the spouses of these workers and say, I'm sorry. It would have been very difficult to do such a thing.
Absolutely. And people don't realize what unsung heroes you and your staff were, and what you really put at risk, like you're saying. And, you know, you're saying family members, friends, you know, disowned them or didn't want to be around them. And hey, that's a lot of pressure. And so what turned the tide? Like, here you had all these people coming in, and really basically every one of them that was contracting it was dying, right? But then what was the turn when all of a sudden you were able to actually have people walking out that came in with it but lived through it, and it started to turn that tide? How do you explain that or share that with our audience?
Well, thank you. I would say first it was a collective effort. We had our input, and our international partner came, and we had different aspects where different groups were doing different things. We had people doing community mobilization. So the community were first convinced or made the community to accept the fact that Ebola existed. Because that was our first challenge.
Yes.
The community refused to accept that we had such disease in the country. But when it got to understand and had a better perception of what we were dealing with,
Right.
they begin to respond positively. Secondly, when people realize that not everyone coming to the unit or to the Ebola treatment unit who died of the disease or could possibly live, then they begin to leave the community and start coming to the treatment unit for treatment. Because initially, what we put out there through the press initially was,
If
once
you
you
got
got
it, you
Ebola,
were gonna die.
that's the end of
Right.
it. So coming to the Ebola treatment unit meant a death sentence. And you don't want to come to the hospital or treatment unit when you know you're going to die anyway.
Right.
So they chose to go to outlaw traditional healers or go to the churches for prayer.
Right.
And
that wasn't enough.
That led to the spread of the disease further.
Right,
Because the
right.
pastors began to lay hands and pray, and they too started getting infected.
Right.
The traditional healer rubbing their chalks, and they too started getting infected. And people begin to run away from the capital to the rural parts looking for
Right.
souls where they could find
Right.
an answer
Right.
to the problem.
It reminds me a little bit of AIDS here in the U.S., where people didn't want to get tested. They didn't want to know. But now, then we educated the public, and now they know if they get tested, they can treat it. And so similar
So
situation.
when we started, it was in early August that we sat down and said, look, everyone can continue to die from the disease. We need to do something.
Right.
So I and my physician assistants, we got together and began to just read at random, this is a RNA virus in a way. What do we know about RNA virus? Let's just, anything we can use on RNA viruses,
Right.
let's bring it on board and see whether it make any sense. And then begin to cater to primarily the various signs and symptoms these patients are presenting with. Primarily, we thought to cater to, as much as possible, attend to shock. We never had much investigatory capability to know what was the end stage of the disease that were actually giving rise to these patients dying until late December, before we managed to get a few hours start through our research partners, before we got to know that renal failure and was one of the primary cause of many of these patients dying. So, but because they were presenting with shock, and we then begin to give aggressive fluid resuscitation.
Right.
And we realized things begin to change gradually. And then before our partners like WHO and others came in, then we had to adapt a treatment guideline for Liberia. Yes, looking at what we were already doing. And then we had a few meetings discussing, sharing what we were doing at our various centers.
Right.
And then others began to follow. But when we realized by the middle of August that people lifestyle began to change and people started responding to whatever empirical treatment we started giving them, then we said, we think we should continue this because we begin to see a change.
Right.
And then, yes, that's when we then called the press. And on days we were discharging patients, we were shaking their hands because stigmatization in the community was another problem.
Right.
As these patients were discharged,
Right.
they were rejected in their homes. Their family did not want to see them again. And so we begin to shake hands with them
Right.
showing that if they were safe
Yes.
for us, if
Right.
they were posing danger to the community, we
Right.
wouldn't shake their hands. So we
Right,
begin
and
to
that's
shake their
much
hands.
the same as HIV, right?
Yes,
People didn't
yeah.
want to shake
No,
their hands.
no, no.
So all
Right.
the world was kind of looking at how you were handling it and how you turned it around and then started to follow suit.
Yeah, so from there,
Which
people
makes
begin
sense
to
why
come
you
in
all were
large
featured
number.
in the
Well,
article.
we were just thinking about saying how best we could help.
Right. But it's
And
nice
not-
that
not
someone
like-
recognized what
yes,
you
I
did,
mean,
and
today,
it was pretty much of a miracle, really. That turnaround.
why it's true we're working, helping to save life. It was
Yeah.
living in fear every day,
Right.
and perhaps having at the back of your mind that
Yeah.
in the next day or week you too could die.
Yes.
So that's how we.
Right. There's an incentive.
Yes, I mean,
So the two of you are working together on this infrastructure in the
Well, yes.
yeah.
Yes, we are
building up the village with water, so the girls don't have to fetch it every day, and
Yes.
and that way they can have the time to get educated, the women and children.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
majority of the girls are not allowed to go to school because they
Right.
have to stick with African tradition. The women are told that they have to collect water and
Get
prepare for
married at
marriage.
like
10, 11 years old, some of
Yeah,
them,
that
right?
Don't
So-
you agree that that cultural thing needs to change in your country? Are you on board with that?
Well, definitely it
Yeah.
need to change, but it's going to take some time because
Yes.
The availability of jobs for
Yes.
most of the girls or children, their parents, is one challenge. Even those that are employed, the salary scale is so poor.
Right.
Imagine having $1
yes.
is almost like a salary for some, and then
Right.
where are you going to get looking at transportation, looking at school salary fees?
But don't you think
looking
it
at
starts with
renting.
educating them so that they can go to university and
100%.
then start businesses that maybe employ others, and
Yes.
it's like building that
Well, it's not-
infrastructure foundation so
That's
that it
it.
can change.
That's it.
And
That's
not only
Yeah.
that, I mean, Liberia has one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world, one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. And so I think that by keeping the girls involved in secondary education, all the way up from primary to secondary, will actually decrease all of that, right?
Right,
Because then now they can
sure.
refuse unsafe sex, right?
Right.
So you also decrease the whole AIDS pandemic that's also going on as
Right.
well. We'll be able to decrease infant mortality and maternal mortality as well, too.
Right.
And women make a decision when they want to get married, right? And then we
Right.
also have a decrease in children,
Right.
right? Because then now they choose how many children that they do want to have.
Right.
But it's
And start having
also-
them at 20 instead of
Yes.
15 or
Yeah, but also the majority of the girls that graduate usually end up becoming entrepreneurs, or they get involved in their community,
Yes.
and they end up empowering their girls to go to school. So
Sure.
the cycle continues.
Right,
You know?
and it builds over generations, and
Yes.
yeah, it's just the beginning, and you two are the catalyst to that in that area. No, that's very exciting because people will sit home and think, how can I possibly impact the world?
Right.
And here it is, two people together joining forces, making such a significant difference in one village in the country that affects thousands of people, right?
Right.
And so people can make a difference. They can get behind Kimberly Moore Foundation to support what you're doing.
And ND Hope, we
And-
are
and-
working. They're our partners. Norman Ebenezer, I think I mentioned him on the show. Because we
Right.
adopted his letter to help Liberia, right? Because only 13% of children have access to schools. That's it.
Right, and ND Hope
So-
is the one that gave you all the Loop
The
Awards,
Loop Awards,
Loop
right?
Award,
Regis
yeah.
University.
Which is, again, leadership, overcoming obstacles for peace.
Yes.
Yeah, what a great endeavor.
Yeah.
So, well, no grass is growing under you two. Have you heard that American expression?
no grass is green.
But I want to say one thing. A lot of the
Yes.
kids that are in the village lost their parents due to the Ebola virus.
Right.
So we have a lot of displaced
Oh.
children. So not only are we're doing, we are trying to empower girls in the village to go to school,
Oh,
but
you're helping
we're
those
building
orphans.
Yeah, so we're building a safe, a girl-friendly school. So basically, they're for boys and girls, but actually keeps it just a safer environment. But it actually supports the girls
Oh,
along
I
the
love
way.
that.
So
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Well, I hope people listen and get behind this effort. I know I'm going to continue to tell anybody who will listen about both adoptaletter.org and Kimberly Moore Foundation and
.org and ndhope.org.
ndhope.org. ND. And what does ND stand for?
A New Dimension of Hope.
A New Dimension of Hope. Don't we need that?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So what's on your agenda now? Any new aspirations besides helping with this foundation?
Well, one of the challenges we continue to have in Liberia has to do with still being able to provide basic health services. The irony about everything is that during the outbreak, our partners came running in and helping to curtail the situation.
Right.
By the end, a lot of them fled and gone back to their respective countries and what have you. But some of the challenges we had from the beginning are still existing. Like human resource development is
Right.
still a big challenge. For example, the role I found myself playing ought to have been done by an infectious disease consultant or specialist.
Right.
Yes, but here I am a surgeon taking over an infectious disease. And so the need for training people in that area is still
In
there.
HR.
Yes. Okay,
Well, it
it's
sounds
still
to
there.
me like get these girls the
Yes,
water
so-
we can educate
Yes.
them
Yes,
so
that
they
is-
can be HR
that's it.
directors to there we
In
go
the
we've
future,
solved
right?
it you
Yes.
all.
Yes,
we
so,
solved it.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why when she asked me to join her, without any hesitation, I decided to come and see how I can help.
Yes.
Primarily so that we can go back to those children.
Yes.
Because any of them could grow up becoming another Jerry Bryan in the future.
Yes.
Another one could grow up
Yes.
and become scientists tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Or even do much better than we have done.
Yes.
Okay, but if they are left in their current status,
Yes.
they tend to die with their brain. They
Absolutely.
tend to go down
yeah,
the drain.
with so much
without-
untapped brain power
Definitely.
in those children.
Yes.
And these
Yes.
kids are ambitious. If you go to the
Yes.
schools,
Yes.
we would ask them, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And every kid said, I want to be president.
I
I
want
want
to
to be
be
a
a
doctor,
doctor.
right?
Yeah,
I want to
love
be a
that.
pilot. And
I
that's what
want
they
to
keep
be a pilot.
saying.
That's
Yeah.
great they have those dreams and
Yes.
that you all are doing something to move them toward reaching those dreams. And that's what I love about the show. I loved us talking about how everybody can be chipping in to make a difference. And,
No, and thank you. And you're making a big difference on your show.
Oh,
and I'm just really honored to be on your show, especially the second time. It's
I know you're my
fantastic,
first
yeah.
guest to come back twice. I'm thrilled. And Dr. Jerry, so nice to have you.
Thank you so
Welcome
much.
to the U.S.
Yeah.
and glad to have you here. You
Thank
two
you.
just keep doing amazing magic things
Thank
that you're
you.
doing, and our listeners will hopefully step up to the plate and start getting involved with your foundation or other foundations because we can all make a difference.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
And one
thank you.
thing,
Yes.
you can actually text to give. So you can
Oh, I love that.
text the word give to 48421.
48421.
Text give, the word give, G-I-V-E, to 48421.
And that money goes to
It goes to helping us build infrastructure for children's education and
Beautiful.
girl-friendly schools in Liberia.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you both,
Thank
and
you.
I hope to have you both back again.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And we will be right back with our two fabulous filmmakers, Venice and Amy. See you in a few minutes.
The Live, Love, Thrive radio show is produced by 360karma.com. Are you a 360 Karma woman? If so, spread the word. Be sure to follow us on social media at 360 Karma Women on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please like us and share us with family and friends. This is the year of the woman, and we are stronger together. The Live, Love, Thrive program is brought to you in part by Honda of downtown Los Angeles, supporting the equality and empowerment of women.
We're back with Amy Siegel and Vanice Reeder. Welcome, ladies. Boy, I know that was a tough act to follow, right? Oh, boy, those people are doing amazing work, aren't they? But you two fall in that category, too. I can't wait to talk about your films and the endeavors that you guys are involved in. Do you know, I always try to look at what my guests have in common, and you both have had interesting touches with the Midwest. Yeah, so I know you were born here in L.A.,
Right.
but you went to school in Wisconsin.
Yep.
And you actually were born in the Midwest,
Yes,
in Indiana,
Indianapolis,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Indy 500.
Yeah. So embarrassingly, you both have that in common. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
She's
Yeah, I know you loved it, right? You
I
went,
love the Midwest.
yeah.
I'm a big
Wisconsin,
fan.
went to dance, a dance major, right?
Dance major.
Yeah. Do you still love dancing?
I still love dancing.
Okay. All right.
I
Well, we
can,
might make you dance.
Yeah, I can do a little demo
Nothing.
later.
We'll put you on the spot. Here, let's clear the
Since we're on
desk.
video.
Oh, wow.
So you're both filmmakers, which of course I love, being a filmmaker myself, and I love that we have in common that we've both done films on gay marriage. So I actually had the person who's the focus of your film, Freedom to Marry, Evan Wolfson, who is like the Mr. Gay Marriage. I mean, he is the reason probably that we have gay marriage, or one of the big reasons. And he was also in my film, I Can't Marry You, that was hosted by Ellen's mom, Betty DeGeneres. And yours, of course, is now, that mine was a decade ago, before we had marriage, but yours is out now. And yours is about how we got the right to have gay marriage through the Supreme Court, and that's featured in the film, right?
Yep.
So it's a fascinating film. It's about to be out at the theaters. And
It was just in theaters. It's now out on video on demand, iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play.
oh my God, I love that. You know, I get most of my movies now on either Amazon or Netflix.
You're not alone.
Yeah, I think most people do. It's interesting. Yeah. Another friend I had a film out at the theaters, and we just saw it on Netflix. So that's great that you got it on that. I think that's a more important distribution today than the theaters, because more people will see it obviously on Amazon than on out at the theater. Don't you think? I think so. Yeah.
I do think there's something special when we can get people to the theater. To
I
have them.
love it.
The
I
experience
personally
has been
love it. Yeah.
very different. People boo when they see the anti-gay marriage folks. They cheer at the win. They're cheering for Evan. They're cheering for the whole movement, and they're cheering for the film being a good film.
Yeah, and you might think, oh, we have gay marriage. Why would I go see this film? It's kind of, and by seeing it, I see that it's really important for people to understand how we got there.
I think even so, more today than ever. I think
More
when we
today than
when we finished
ever.
it in June, it didn't have quite the relevance it has now, like a year later.
Yes, it's interesting how that is.
We're actually
isn't it?
trying to figure out where to go from here, and this film actually offers an opportunity to figure out how you actually change the world.
Now, how interesting enough, the topic of your film is gay marriage. You are not gay.
I'm not gay.
Vanice, however, is married to a woman.
To a woman.
So that's kind of interesting.
Who apparently
Yeah.
we mimic the couple from Rent. Amy and I discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you also have an interesting book coming out, because the guy who, since you mentioned Rent, that wrote Rent was someone that you knew. You're writing a book about his life or something?
Yeah, I'm working on writing a book that shares a bit about his story via the documentary filmmaker I work for. Was very close friends with Jonathan Larson, and I kept hearing stories about Jonathan, and I found them wildly informative and inspirational and instructive, and so I just wanted to write some of those lessons down.
And he is the one that wrote Rent, which is, I think, the longest running, most popular Broadway show in history or something?
It's
isn't it?
neither. I mean,
I thought it was. It
not
seemed
the
like it was there for like 100
it's like
years.
the 9th longest running.
Okay, well, you would know. You're writing the book.
But it was the one that reinvigorated the musical industry. It changed Broadway. There's before Rent and after Rent, and after Rent it became a medium that young people and contemporaries could attend.
You told me one interesting thing that I did not know, was that he died, the writer of it, before it ever hit Broadway. Like,
Oh,
the
yeah,
week
well
before. Or something.
the night before it appeared at all. The night before a paying audience even saw.
That
Rent.
gives me chills. I imagine that most of our viewers have seen Rent either on Broadway or in a film format. They did it in a film format, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did a film version.
And it's well, why don't you tell us what it's about? Because you'd be better to give us a little synopsis than
what
I
Rent
would.
is about?
Yeah.
Sure. It's
Because you said it's kind of about your story, right? Like you related to it. You
I related to
moved
it.
to New York and
Yeah, it's about a group of artists coming together to form community, and it follows a year in the life of them in that community as they're struggling with the AIDS epidemic.
right.
So it's actually based off of the opera La Boheme, which tells a similar story.
Now, people might think when we say that the writer of Rent died the night before it hit Broadway that maybe he was HIV positive, but he wasn't. That was
Right.
not the story, right? Which I would have just assumed that the writer of it might have been writing his own story, but it's not the case. So this is a very informative conversation, I think, about the background of that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think everybody assumes that a man wrote a musical, he must be gay. And
Yeah.
because he died, he must have had AIDS.
Right, you would think that if that's
What I find so cool about Jonathan Larson is that it wasn't him, but rather his best friend and several of his other friends that had died of AIDS or were HIV positive
Right.
and gay, that he had such empathy within him that he was able to write about that struggle even though it wasn't his own.
So now I know what you two have in common.
Exactly.
Because you shared with me, I said, why did you make a movie about gay marriage if you're not gay? And you had shared with me, being Jewish, that you felt like, freedom for one is freedom for all. It's something that you probably created because of being Jewish, that you have that empathy. Like I feel that way about all minorities because I'm gay. I feel like I have an empathy for people that are different or not mainstream. So would you say that
Yeah.
was the kind
I feel
of...
pretty strongly that, that the point of all this is that even if it doesn't affect you, it does affect you. That if we're not
Yes.
sticking up for each other
Exactly.
and we're only caring about the things that affect us directly, we're not going to be very successful. So if
Right.
men only care about men's issues, women only care about women's issues, we're not going to progress very far. So
Right.
yes,
One
just
for all and all for
just because
one.
I'm not
Yeah.
gay and
Yeah.
and I don't even have very many friends or family members that are gay, I still recognize that it's a human rights issue, and that is something that affects me.
Right. I love that. It's nice that you have that empathy and that you see that side of it and that you've made this movie.
Yeah.
And Venice, I know you have an interesting background. I said that briefly that you grew up in Indiana. And, I always say the obstacles that we have in our life is who shapes us to who we are today. And here you are doing great work and doing everything from, I know you've traveled the world singing and you're a filmmaker and you work with a nonprofit that we're going to talk about. But your beginnings were very tough. I know your mom gave you up to your aunt and you lived in a house, a 2-bedroom house with 7 kids, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, she didn't give me up per se. I lived with my aunt while she went to college in California at Stanford.
Right.
But it was a
Challenging set of circumstances. Yeah.
Challenging set of circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't really, that connection, that childhood connection, was a little bit skewed from there.
Yeah.
Due to that, but
Right.
it
And
is.
how many years did you live in Indiana with your aunt?
You know what? I think I might have only been with them maybe 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a short stint, and then I came out and we lived in Berkeley for a bit, and then we came back to Indiana, which is really what shaped me, because then I knew the difference
Right.
the difference between the Midwest and the West. Like, everybody wasn't the same, and
Right.
that's where my revelations about Black people as well is like, we're not all the same.
I see.
And so that helped me to understand, like, not all people are the same, and then that we're just people,
Right.
and you have to, relate to people on an individual basis, which,
Right.
kind of helped mold my
How was that
storytelling.
cultural difference? Like, was Midwest not as welcoming as California, or not as hip as California? What was it that you noticed? As because you're an artist,
Yes.
So yeah,
It was all of that. I mean, we were, at that time, it was black and it was white. We had one Vietnamese girl in the 6th grade, and, you know, I remember all the little black girls were like, we're going to go talk to her. And we walked up and she started talking, and we're like, oh, no, she's white. You know, and so there was those kind of cultural blocks. And when I did come to California, it was like culture shock. Like,
Right.
seeing everybody you've seen on TV
Right.
really represented, and having to, you know, ask stupid questions, you know, about, you know, your Chinese friends, like, you know, eating chicken, or you know, they eat the eggs that have the whole bird inside, like
Right.
that blew my mind. So,
Right.
you know, that's
The
all
cultural
formed.
differences,
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Indiana was very, and it still is really backwards in a lot of ways.
Right.
And that's one of the goals of my storytelling. I feel like I've been able to see the world from a different perspective, and I almost feel responsible that for those people who are, you know, still might be going through those cultural divides in the Midwest, I owe it to them to say something about how I've seen it differently, or how I experienced it.
Right. And your beautiful film short, Being Less, is about your relationship with your Caucasian girlfriend, that and the struggles with her family being very religious and not, you know, accepting of gays, and kind of saying, hey, it's, you know, this or it's either her or us, and, you know, making people give that type of decision that still exists in this country very prevalently today, as you know.
Yes.
And it was interesting to see your film short about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. I mean, we both learned a lot in the process of having to retell it, which also really inspired me as a filmmaker. Like, there's an empowerment when you have to, like, reconvey something that you're experiencing.
Yeah,
it
cathartic.
makes you, it's very cathartic. And just having to look at Christianity from that perspective, especially being in the West, where you think everyone's so liberal and open and free, and they're just not. And they're very quiet about their discriminating, and a lot of judgment going on. So you get on social media, and it's like, oh yeah, we support you, but in a text message to your phone or in a voicemail, I'm going to leave some really ugly comments, you know, that no
Right.
one's going to hear about
Right.
unless you say something. And you don't want to expose everybody's BS, but we do want to expose it. This is the experience that people are still having to walk through,
Right.
in embracing who they are.
Right.
You know, I'm just trying to live a full, open life.
Right, which is what the movie's about, Freedom to Marry. I know you make
Nice.
some really poignant points in it about, you know, love is love, and why can't two people love each other? How does it impact other people is always the kind of mystery, you know, of why people don't want people to be able to have that union. You know, when I was making my movie, I would have people say, I remember doing a radio interview, and someone said to me, what you're doing is saying is blasphemous. And I said, well, how is that? I said, because every atheist in this country is allowed to get married. It's not about religion, it's about love. And, you know.
Well, that was actually the turning point in the movement, when they initially started the movement talking about people's rights and benefits that were attached to marriage. And then at a certain point, they did a survey and realized that straight people don't think of marriage as a contract or as a way of attaining these benefits, but rather as a
religious
merger.
thing?
Like an expression of love, you know?
Oh,
and
right.
so then the movement sort of went, okay, we need to help people understand that gay people have the same love and commitment and want the same respect for their love that straight people do. And so
Right.
their whole messaging changed.
Right. Yeah. With I Can't Marry You, I was trying to get people to understand that there were over 1,000 rights and benefits and protections that came with it, everything from immigration to medical, and that these were reasons also, besides love, to allow people to marry so they could visit their loved one in the hospital or share benefits or taxes or whatever. And so
And that'll
it was
win
an
over,
education process.
That'll win over like good, like progressive liberal people,
Right, but
and
not
then
the conservatives, yeah.
They're like 20% on the left, you'll always have their vote, and then 20% on the right, you'll never get their vote.
Right.
Then there's like that middle 60%, the reachable but not yet reached, they call it.
Right.
So
Right.
through them, you have to get to their heart and not just their head.
I remember taking my Republican father to a film festival in Fort Lauderdale where they were playing my film, and afterwards I said, "Well, do you understand it better now?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I understand. Love is love." Yeah, and I was like, "Yay!" I think we made some progress
Stories
here.
have that power.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think
why we tell them.
that connection too, like, because I don't know if you guys seen the movie Get Out.
I've
Maybe
heard
not.
about it.
Okay. Well, my experience meeting my wife's father was similar to that, and he was not accepting at all. And when we met, we had a racial barrier and the gay barrier to get through.
Yeah, a little double whammy
Uh-huh,
there.
yeah. And by the end of it, we had this moment. We were actually at an event, and he was excited about everything was going on, and we went to leave, and he was like, "All right, let's get out." And he put his arm up, and then he caught himself, and he put it down. And I said, "No. You were trying to hug me. I'm going in for the real thing." And I hugged him, and I felt his body collapse into the hug, and I felt the change. And it was like, this is why we have to share and be present, because it will change that physical connection. All the senses got to get involved.
Well, they always say when you actually know another person, it gets rid of that fear that you have of them being different than you, and I believe that's so true.
Yeah.
And just real quick before we wrap up, the name of the organization that you work with, let's talk about that.
Yes, I work with the Limitless Initiative. It started as the Limitless Academy. It's changed to was included the Limitless Initiative in order to bring in other communities around nationwide to get involved in helping the children in the urban sector learn robotics and be exposed to coding. So
and these kids get to participate in the building of robotics and compete locally, nationally, internationally. And I just think that's really cool what you're doing. So I wanted to mention that in case people want to look that up.
Yes, it's the limitlessinitiative.org.
Yeah.
And if you can get involved and find out about it, like, it's really, you see how it's molding and changing the kids and opening up their opportunities to be involved in the process,
And this is about the STEM movement, right?
The STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yeah.
And we also were with CS for All, which Obama started before, he was out of office.
Yeah.
I miss you. But just to get the sciences to the kids, so they not only use the apps, they know how to build them and take them to market.
I love that. Well, you guys are both making such a wonderful difference. As I said in the first half of the show, it does just take a single person or a group of us to, make a difference in the world. And let's hope that everybody's getting off the sidelines, getting off the couch, turning off the TV, and doing something that's meaningful, that's impacting other people's lives. And so if they want to see Freedom to Marry, they can see it on Amazon.
iTunes. And Google Play. Yep.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And if they want to get a hold of the Limitless Initiative, it's
limitlessinitiative.org. And my short film, the website is beinglessthemovie.com.
Being Less the Movie. Thank you both so much. You're both incredible filmmakers, and I'm honored to have you both on. Keep making great films.
Yay.
Love women films. Okay, everybody, make it a great week. Go out, make a difference. Hugs and happiness.